Welcome to the presentation on the subject concerning the examination techniques. And I am Alisala Mulambia, doctor. And in our presentation, we have the following things that we shall look at. The use of the 15 minutes reading time. Secondly, the course competencies that are demanded of the students who sit for CA1.5, and suggested preparatory tips or advice prior and during the examinations. Common mistakes that are made by students. 5, the suggested examination answering techniques. And 6, practical examination answers as well as the questions. We'll look at the compulsory one, which is a multiple choice, as well as the option ones in section B. And then we'll conclude. On the course competencies that are required, they are about 10. The first one is describing the structure and purpose of the organization. In doing this, we will look at identifying the objectives that managers set for the organization, describing the benefits of the structure of different types of organization, and also identifying the factors that give rise to managerial choice of any organization type. The second one is describing the business environment and the role and activities that management determines for the organization within that particular environment. And here we expect the students to describe the strategic environment that business operates within, describe the business planning process that supports the managerial decisions, and also explaining the managerial control relationship between the business plans and activities. Third one, third competence, is explaining the role of governance and ethics in relationship to the management of the organization. Here we expect that the student will outline governance structures and key governance roles, and they should also describe the principles of corporate governance and outline the key ethical principles that they need to have in ensuring that this is well done. The fourth one is explain the role of managers and theories of management in both the public and private sector. Here we expect the students to explain the role of the manager and the principles of management. We also expect that the student will outline leadership theories and styles, and also specify how management and can use motivation. We now turn to suggested preparatory tips and advice prior to actual examination. We know very well that an examination is a race for marks against time of what you learned for a period of time. And therefore, there will be certain things that students are expected to do, like practice your handwriting to ensure it is legible and clear. Read the course materials as presented in the latest model intensively. Read the course materials with an open mind, no preconceived ideas. Understand the principles, ideas, theories, and the fundamentals, etc., etc. Do not memorize the learning material. Understand it, please. Test your understanding of the materials by answering some practical exercises, past test papers, and past examination papers. Discuss regularly answering of examination questions with colleagues, tutors, and the competent people. The next part, which we need to look at now, is the common examinations mistakes that are made by most candidates during the exams. And these include not understanding the question in full, misreading questions or their parts, answering only part of the question, inability to explain relationship between concepts, inability to explain how a concept can be used in a practical like manner for business development, inability to apply models to solving problems, inability to discuss concepts, failure to provide solutions to managerial or business problems or challenges or any dilemma, failure to provide correct issues in the solutions which are requested in the questions. Solutions are too general to be specific value to a manager. Inability to carry out the calculations. Probably. We may have problems with mathematics, but we don't expect from a student who's pursuing an accounting qualification. Confusing some concepts for others due to poor understanding of the same. Diagrams are not labeled correctly. And also, as we said earlier, poor handwriting, spellings, and grammar. Now we will turn to suggested examination answer tips and advice during the examination. Read the instructions carefully and thoroughly to understand the requirements. Firstly, read all the questions on the paper as quickly as possible. Then read all the questions slowly while referring to the instructions given. Understand what the question really requires. If in doubt, ask the invigilator to clarify if he or she is able to do so. Decide which questions to answer based on their content, your understanding and capability. Mark them accordingly. Use the marks allocated in each question and part to determine roughly how much time to spend on each. The more the marks, the more time is needed to do that question. Avoid wrong numbering of questions, as is the characteristic in most of the examinations that we've gone through, as well as writing of parts of the same question on different pages after the other question. Like you write one on page 1, then you jump over and write on page 6 and expect that the examiner or the marker will identify it. Also, avoid wrong and misnumbering of solutions to questions indicated in the answer script. Also, candidates should use ink in presenting diagrammatic answers and tend to overwrite their work in making a correction on the errors already done. It is encouraged to all the candidates that they be reminded to come to the examination room with pencils, rulers, and erasers instead of disturbing other students and other candidates for their equipment. Suggested techniques of answering questions in the examination. For you, if you know very well that the first compulsory examination is very, very important, you should always start with it first. Then you can go to the other question. But also, as you look at the compulsory questions, which is always number 1, rather than quickly answering each question, candidates are advised to first eliminate items in the multiple choice which are completely irrelevant in the request before choosing the best option answer. In the CA1.5 question paper, candidates should relate material learned in class or manuals to scenarios presented in the examination questions. Answer the questions depending on the level of easiness, content, or preference. Answer all the parts of the questions for the maximum credit to be given. Solutions must be well presented, coordinated, and demonstrate that they are well thought through. Always assume that the examiner or the marker is ignorant of the subject and you are teaching him or her. This brings the maximum marks to be given. In essay-type questions, candidates should begin working through their solution by first defining the key themes contained in the question, and then proceed to address the requirements.
Take your career prospects to the next level with ZIKA.
Our diploma in accountancy is an essential qualification if you're planning on entering the accounting profession.
The ZIKA tax program at both certificate and diploma level equips you with an enhanced understanding of the field of taxation.
Our diploma in public sector financial management is ideal for accountants or trainee accountants working in the public sector.
And CA Zambia, a respected designation designed to ensure that graduates are highly trained to hold senior positions in the workplace.
You can study through flexible options like self-study as well as part-time or full-time through our accredited tuition providers.
ZIKA sponsors the top CA Zambia graduate to the One Young World Summit for Young Leaders and also offers scholarships to the top university accountancy graduates from recognized universities.
Visit zika.co.zm now for more information or find us on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Don't delay, your future awaits.
Whenever necessary, include relevant examples in your solutions. This demonstrates that the candidate understands the material they are being examined on and can apply it to real-life situations. Do not unnecessarily and irrelevant things. These only subtract from the sanctity of your answer and indicate that you do not understand what you are talking about. Quality and not quantity is the hallmark of good answers in CA1.5. Management theory and practice. Calculations, diagrams, drawings, sketches, tables, and charts must be neat and in pencil. So ensure that the diagrams and drawings and sketches are nicely done. Ensure to go over your answers to ensure accuracy, completeness, and appropriateness before you hand over your script to the invigilators. Use all the available time to answer all the questions fully and correctly. Do not be in a hurry to finish the exam and leave the exam room. Take your time. This is your life and your future. Now let's turn to the practical examination questions. We've been talking about the techniques. Now let's look at the questions themselves. And we shall start with the compulsory question, which is always number one in CA1.5. Now turn to the question one, which is always the multiple choice questions. You always have 10 of these questions. And for the clarity of how we must do, I'll only pick one. And this paper was examined in 2018. And I'll only pick one question so that I can give an example of how you should do it. And this is how it reads. Section A, compulsory. Attempt all the 10 multiple choice questions for the purpose of the exercise. And the question one says, which 18th century writer produced a famous book called The Wealth of Nations? We know that the There is Frederick Taylor as A, B as Henry Mintzberg, C as Adam Smith, and D, Dr. Boris Johnson. We have others that follow in our presentation here. There are about 5. We only got 5. But now I'll turn to question 1, which I want us to discuss. As you can see, the answers are there. Question 1.1 is C, 1.2 is D, 1.3 is D also, 1.4 is C, and 1.5 is D. But we are more concerned with 1.1, and therefore we shall discuss it. And this is how the question was. Which 18th century writer produced a famous book called The Wealth of Nations? We know that the answers were Frederick Taylor A, B, Henry Mintzberg, C, Adam Smith, and D, Dr. Boris Johnson. In this case, in a multiple choice questions, you start by removing obvious wrong answers. In the example above, in 1.1, the key word in the question was, first, a name of a person, and the 4 names are given from A to D. B, who lived in the 18th century. And C, who produced the above book, The Wealth of Nations. So, in discriminating the answers and getting the correct answer, 1, the answer cannot be D, because it's obvious. Boris Johnson is a politician and a British Prime Minister. He is not even a doctor and lives in the 21st century, so it can't be an answer. Number 2, the answer cannot be A, as Frederick Taylor, who did not live in the 18th century and is very famous for having produced the 14 administrative principles. So A is out. 3, we know that Henry Mintzberg is still alive in the 21st century and is famous for the managerial roles, and therefore B is a wrong answer. Therefore, C is the correct answer, as Adam Smith lived in the 18th century and wrote this book in 1776. We now turn to the option questions. Normally they give 6, and you have to choose 4, accounting for the 80 marks that remain. And we will choose 1 question of the same paper of 2018, and this is how the question 2 reads. Human Resource Management, HRM, is concerned with assessing the organizational human resource needs, finding people to meet those needs, and getting the best performance out of them. Therefore, HRM has been recognized as a specialized function which helps organizations to recruit the right staff for the right job. Organizations have realized that one of the reasons why there is high staff turnover is because most people are employed in the wrong jobs. Now, this is what the question requires of every candidate who wrote that paper. Explain the 3 main stages of job recruitment and selection process, and it is 12 marks. B, state 4 advantages of internal recruitment, and that carries 8 marks. In providing a solution, this is what is required of you as a student. In the first question, we saw that it said, explain the 3 main stages of job recruitment and selection process. And the marks were 12. And therefore, it requires that the 3 things, each one of them has 4 marks. And therefore, the advice is to provide 4 facts on each item to get the maximum 4 marks for each of the items, so that when you have 3, you can have 12. And it's advisable to gain maximum points if you do so. Defining the requirements, such as the preparation of job description, job specification, and personal specifications. 2, in the answering the same question, attracting applicants. Those are the three functions. The second one is attracting applicants. This involves advertising and notifying people about the job variety and vacancy in some way, or enlisting the help of specialist job recruitment agency. Item needed in that requirement is selecting the appropriate candidate for the job from among the applicants through the interview or tests. B, identify and illustrate 4 advantages of internal recruitment. They are asking for 4 items which are advantages, and therefore each one of them carries 2 marks. Advice is that provide 2 facts on each advantage that is given to get your maximum points. And these are the items that are required of you. It is usually less costly to recruit internally. 2, a policy of internal promotion may improve the material and the motivation within the organization. The third item is internal promotion provides a career development opportunity to talented individuals who might otherwise leave the organization. The fourth one is internal applicants understand the organization and its culture. And in this case, we have even the fifth. Since you are to pick 4, the fifth will be full induction of the internal employee might not be needed. Dear listeners and potential students, as well as candidates to write CA1.5, it is advised that you go through all these errors and mistakes that are made by those that wrote in the past so that you don't repeat them. And we have presented this material so that it's helpful to you to get the maximum point that are available for your passing and becoming a successful accountant. I hope that this presentation has been of help to all of you. Thank you very much.